a businesswoman who knows what she's talking about and has a wide variety of technique and grace, and also the fiery red hair. She started the platform, which started out disabled people 3 years ago, and I'm glad that she's agreed to talk to me today. Hi, Sadie.
Hello, Lauren. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Right. So, actually, we've previously discussed what we're going to talk about. So, you have been in the working corporate industry for how long?
So I went self-employed at 24, and I at the time was doing business advice with small companies, and after that kind of the clients got bigger and doing more training and kind of working with corporates and multinationals and all of those sorts of things in the corporate world. So since I was 24 and I'm 38 now, so nearly, well, about 15 years now.
You don't look a day over 24.
Thank you, Lauren. I'll take that. It's good moisturiser.
And with you going self-employed at 24, why did you decide to go self-employed? Is it because the corporate industry is occasionally a bit busy, toxic, mental health question?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, actually, because I mean my circumstances for going self-employed was I was made redundant from a local government organisation, and at the time somebody offered me a contract, but I had to do it self-employed. And at the time I thought, well, if I mess it up, I'll just go and try and get another job. You know, nothing ventured, nothing gained, as they say. But what was interesting was them working with small businesses. It was lovely, but it was challenging. And I think certainly where I was running my own business, I put an awful lot in. Like if I was unhappy or I got distracted or if I got stressed, I spent more time on my business because that's what I could control, and I can invest all of my efforts in that. So I think I had my first signs actually of being particularly prone to mental health issues and self-imposed stress, as I think it was at the time. Even before I went self-employed, my first job out of university was with a small company. It was my first ever role. I was so excited to get it. It was just a general administration and kind of coordination role. But actually, you know, I loved it and I threw everything in. And within sort of 12 months, I had to take 3 months off because I had stress and I was in tears twice a week and I was working all sorts of hours just to try and put my all in. So I'd certainly think for me, my mental health challenges weren't so much caused by the corporate industry, but more so because I always put so much in, and where I did that so young, I didn't really understand how to do it in a way that didn't take chips off me and my wellness.
So basically it was like a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think being 24, going self-employed, is it a way of allowing you to experience life in a different way? To have more experiences that you never could?
Massively. Like I am 110% certain that where I'm doing things today, like having launched my own not-for-profit, I've written a book, I speak on stages, I've travelled the world with work, all of those things I did within about 5 or 6 years. Or they started within about 5 or 6 years of me going self-employed. So it was a very steep learning curve, and I absolutely felt like I was making it up as I went along. I often still feel like that. But I absolutely believe that I've done so much more now because I went self-employed, because I got to create my own opportunities rather than waiting for opportunities to come up in a large corporate structure. So that was my experience. It's not always the case for everybody, but I genuinely believe I've done so much more, and I've learned so much more about myself and what I want and how I can create my own opportunities by being self-employed.
Good for you. Now, we've been talking before the recording of this regarding you living out of a suitcase, travelling. Now, how much does that affect your mental health? Like, spend time away from family, friends? Did you have much of a social life? Minus the bougie hotel, minibar, and the cold eggs of a morning travel lodge. Other hotels are available.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a moment of realization that I was spending too much time living out of a suitcase and traveling when I got a postcard at Christmas, like a Christmas card from Travelodge and Travel Inn, saying Happy Christmas to our loyal customers. And I was like, oh, I need to make some changes. I'm getting more cards from hotels than I am from my friends and family at Christmas time. So
Yeah.
yes, I was probably working away when it was at its lowest, 3 days a week. So I was maybe waking up in London and then travelling on Monday night to go to Sheffield, and then leaving Sheffield to go to Manchester on the Wednesday, and then I'd be home for 2 days, do my washing, and then I'd be in the car again for the next week. And at its highest, I was literally living away from home Monday to Friday doing interim contracts. So I lived in Cornwall for 6 months, came home on a Saturday, Sunday to see friends and family, and then went back to Cornwall. I did another contract for 9 months in Nottingham. So it's nice to have the variety, but I think a lot of people that don't stay away for work kind of think it's really glamorous, whereas actually you're just kind of in a hotel room. You could be anywhere, but it's just not glamorous at all. And the minibars are not free anymore, Lauren, so they didn't even have the perks of the minibar.
Aren't they? Fucker. But the thing with hotels, people think it's glamorous that you get to travel around, you get to see the world. The truth is, those can be very tiring days, and that puts a lot of strain on you.
Yes, it's definitely tiring days because, of course, when you don't really have friends and family and things to see in the evening, the temptation is always to go back to your hotel room, as I was, and then carry on working. And, you know, you empty your emails and you work on things. So it is almost like working 24/7. But the other thing I think I didn't realise until I was probably in the habit of working away was how isolating it is. When I was younger growing up, my dad always used to work away for work a lot, and he would used to phone me when he was in a bar in Dublin or Scotland or something, and you could hear all the music in the background, and he was sat there having a nice dinner and he was phoning me, and I was like, what are you doing? Go and have a lovely time. And I realise now he was calling me because it's lonely. You know, there's nobody there to talk to you, particularly if you're traveling on your own, not with colleagues because you're self-employed. So that lack of connection and taking you away from your lives is really hard.
I think it makes you very isolated if you're self-employed. And top business people have equipped themselves. I mean, Karen Brady, chairman of West Ham United and many other successful businesses, says the cling film hasn't been taken off the fridge in a London flat because she's travelling here, there and everywhere. So let's go on to more localised topics now. So, 3 years ago, you decided, sod this, I'm gonna stay home, spend time with my family. I'm done with packing up my stuff, hotel to hotel, but I want to do something that benefits the community. So therefore, the platform came about, not to be confused with the platform in town. This type of platform gives opportunities to, I won't say less advantage, but gives opportunities to people with disabilities to feel a sense of employment. Why did you decide to start something like that?
So what was interesting, actually, the platform project as an idea actually came around about 5 years ago, because where I put too much of myself into work, I actually had a medical breakdown at sort of 31. So it took me about 18 months to recover and really figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I didn't want to be living out of a suitcase and traveling away. And yes, the business was successful, but I didn't love it. I wanted to do something that mattered more and made more of a difference. So it took me a while to figure out what that looked like, but that was then when the platform project started. So what I really wanted to do was, as I've just mentioned, I believe I've had so many more opportunities being self-employed than I would have done had I stuck to more traditional pathways with employment and education. And I wanted to give that opportunity, well, I think everybody should do it, but I really wanted to give that opportunity to young people who haven't necessarily had the chance to thrive within education and employment. So whether that's down to disabilities or social anxieties or a kind of a lack of sort of life stability and behavioural challenges, because I genuinely believe if you don't like your options, create your own. And that was always my kind of way of living with my businesses. If I didn't like what was out there, I try and create my own niche. And that was what the platform project was about.
That's great. I mean, I had to do a bit of research on you before I did this. I checked out Company's House, obviously, and the charity one that they have. And I was amazed to see that during the current situation the world's in, that charities like the Platform Project, Hop, Skip and Jump shut down, sadly, gone into admin, and many other different charities. Do you think that the government, regarding to itself, need to do more, give more support to charities that enable disabled people to have that experience of working in today's current COVID climate?
Yeah, and I think it's such a challenging environment, isn't it? Particularly now with post-COVID. So yes, the work opportunities for everybody are going to be even narrower now than they were before. And if you can't get that work, then you're going to fall under the care of local government and local authorities, which costs them money. So actually, if you can spend that money up front on organisations that maybe help develop those options and capabilities, like the Platform Project, then hopefully the thought process would be that the government wouldn't need to necessarily support people on a longer term basis. However, one thing that I did recognise coming out of the corporate world and into the not-for-profit world, there was a choice we had when I started the project, was do we start it as a charity and therefore have to predominantly rely on charitable funding, and is the money there, is it not, and those sorts of things. Or actually I started the project of what's called a CIC, which is a community interest company, which is actually a legal company, but we are a not-for-profit company, so we don't take any shares home or anything. So any profits that we make, we reinvest in the project so that it can grow. Because for me, I wanted the project to be entrepreneurial and aim to earn its own money so that we didn't have to rely on charitable funding just in case times like this, and actually the small amounts of monies that are there have to be spread so much thinner on so many organisations needing help. So I wanted us to try at least and be financially independent. And I figured that actually if we're trying to tell young people to be entrepreneurial, we need to do the same thing as well. So we earn at least 50% of our income ourselves.
Okay, so let's talk about what businesses the platform project has under its umbrella. Now, I've actually written an article for one of these projects on mental health, which is why I've got you on here, because you're a big supporter of mental health. I'm a big supporter of mental health. We're both advocates of that. So let's talk about the different projects and how it opens up the creative minds of the people that participate.
Okay.
So first we've got I Dare, which is the youth magazine, which started as a blog. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. So in February last year, so about 18 months ago now, we launched the iDare magazine following a request by one of our participants about 6 months before, saying, you know what, I'd love to get some experience in running a magazine, but like a proper young person's magazine, because everything out there is really fake, and I'd like to read something that's real and really represents what's important to young people and what we're struggling with, and things that we would find useful and fulfilling rather than making us feel like we're not enough. So we launched the iDare magazine with the view of actually trying to help people share their story, give young people a real world experience of what is it like working in a publication, albeit a very small one, but at the same time recognizing that being able to gain proper work experience and be able to share your story and talk about things that are important to you and have a voice, have significant mental health benefits as well. So around the sort of the self-esteem and self-belief, because I'm doing something that's real, but also we've had some amazing stories where our participants have endured life challenges and struggles that no fully formed, emotionally experienced adult would survive. And by sharing those stories in the magazine, has helped them process it as well as build their CV at the same time. And it just made so much sense. It's been a privilege to watch the project grow.
Privilege was a project. So, obviously, when I came in for that day, there was one very popular participant. I think you know his name. I don't know if I'm allowed to mention it, but I will check. And I'll check and then I can edit his name out if need be. But aside from all the other participants, J.O.B. as I call him, has had not just him, but Daughter's story really stuck out to me. And so did some of the others, because they've got loads of different real life views. I remember the week I was in there, and one of the participants interviewed, was it an ex-carpenter who had spina bifida? Was that the week I was in?
No, I don't think we've done that interview, but they've certainly interviewed things like the police and crime commissioner. They've interviewed an actor and a philanthropist and a self-employed person. They've interviewed a lot of people there.
Yeah, basically, they've got a lot of balls, quite frankly, because not a lot of journalists would be scared to interview some of the people they've interviewed. I'm very amazed at that. So what other projects have you got coming up?
So our goal is to say, rather than teaching young people what it's like to be self-employed, I'm like, you know what, you need to experience it. And by doing that, you develop your skills and your self-esteem and your confidence and such so much quicker. So we started with the youth magazine because we thought, well, in order to do those things, it has to be a real trading youth-led business, albeit a small scale one. So the youth magazine went so incredibly well. By the end of the first year, we realised it needed to get bigger, but we also started spotting skills that our participants had in the magazine that we thought, actually, there's an opportunity of another business here. So one of the activities that all the young people do on the magazine is do the graphic design for the magazine pages, as well as shoot and edit videos for the interviews. And actually, we realised that there's a lot of startups, so one-man band startups, people launching their own business and not-for-profits that can't afford and don't have the time and the skill set to do things like managing their social media accounts, or even understanding how to do those things with a plan in mind and using different types of software, how to do graphic design for things like new logos and simple websites and things like shooting promotional videos for online promotions and social media videos, because they can't afford, like us, to pay sort of agency rates. So we thought, actually, we've got young people who are really good at doing this, and they just live on a computer and in front of social media. And actually, it's a massive growing self-employment area as well, in terms of the gig economy and people with their freelance skill sets. So I thought it just makes sense to have a company, now a youth-led company, which is a digital media marketing agency. So that launched just before the whole COVID thing hit last February. And it's just about to relaunch, and they've called it the Digi-Teens.
What a great bunch of kids. Now, obviously, a non-profit organisation runs low on funds. So what I've decided to do, and I know it's going to be a big ask of people, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a friend circle. And I'm going to see if you should find your team, and if I should find my team, if we could get some money raised to help you guys during this COVID time.
That would be amazing, Laura. Like we say, we like to try and be independent and earn our money. We sell a lot of our services to schools and things, but ultimately we can only expand as quickly as we can fund those projects, and the more money we get in means the more young people we can help. So anything you can do would be so hugely appreciated.
So I'm going to literally set up a PayPal thing after the recording of this. But it's going to go towards breaking boundaries, and every couple of months I'm going to start a new scheme with different charity benefits. You're the first one that's kicked off by this. So breaking boundaries is going in. Also, I have been amazed at the work you've done throughout this whole entire COVID situation, new normal, blah blah blah. You said you've had an IQ obsession, which I can clearly see. I'd like to nick those, your office figure. But you've been doing Sharp Shares, which is your video blog, to give other people advice on how to do your own startups, and you've been getting guests on it. And yeah. So would you want to tell us more about Sharp Shares?
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And I guess I've always wanted to do a video blog, certainly kind of sharing like my journey and my lessons, because I learned the hard way with a lot of the things that I did, and I wanted to be able to share that for people. But I've always been too busy, so the whole kind of COVID lockdown thing gave me that time. But also I think I kind of felt like a bit of a the term is officially imposter syndrome. I felt like a bit of imposter, because I was like, well, who's interested in my story and what I've got to say? And it's all a bit boring, really. I hate the sound of my own voice. But I basically got over myself during the whole COVID lockdown. I thought, just do it, just see what it looks like. And if it goes well, great. If it doesn't, stop. So I decided with my Sharp Shares video blog, the goal was to say, actually, if I'd known during my journey, when I had my stresses, my depression, my breakdown, when I was investing lots of myself in my business, when I was trying to launch my not-for-profit, we all have so many ups and downs in life, and there are so many things that happen kind of behind the curtain that not everybody talks about, like challenges in corporates and sexism and not-for-profits and feeling like you're about to just implode. And I thought, I want everybody to know all of these things, because actually if they want to do more with their lives, it's not going to be all roses and ponies. It is like a roller coaster journey, but you can get through it more easily when you realize that it's not just you feeling like that. So we talk about everything from work and charity to education, employability, and everything really. So we kind of go wherever the current topic of interest is.
Current topic of interest. I've watched the first two. You're now on episode,
I think we're about to do number 5 now, I think. 5 or 6 off the top of my head.
So I've missed 2. Now you asked me if I could feature, so hello, Laura.
Absolutely. You're going to be this week's feature, Lauren.
But I tell you what, you've decided to give your tips and wisdom and experiences. Now you've already written a book. I think we should start a campaign to get you as one of the dragons on Dragon's Den. To be quite honest, because you're so wisdom-led and you've got such a bubbly personality, and you've got the platform. You've had companies, and some companies have failed, but on the corporate industry side, there's also the mention of the gender pay gap. Now, I'm a feminist. It's known, well, I wouldn't have technically feminist, but I do have quite strong views on this. Do you think that, I've got to be careful how I word this, do you think that a male person who does a similar job to a female staff member should earn the same amount of money? And why do you think the women get paid lower?
I mean, absolutely. The simple answer is absolutely. 100% pay equality is just so important. But I think what's interesting is there's so many factors underneath why that's not the case. And I think certainly something that's even now a work in progress for me, that seems to be a big difference in mindset between men and women, is when you see a job or a project or an opportunity or a contract, a lot of the time, certainly in my experiences and with a lot of other people that I've spoken to and sort of some research and things, a lot of men will look at that opportunity and see what they can do, whereas a lot of women will look at that opportunity and they will focus on what they can't do. So if you kind of overlay that sort of thinking to how do I then recognize what I'm worth, men will think, well, I can do that, so there's my, whereas women will think, oh, I can't do that, so I must kind of detract from it. And I struggle with that a lot of the time, even now, where I do keynote speaking and I will organize an online event and I'm thinking, oh, but you know, it's like not every, you know, nobody's got money at the moment, so I'll offer it a really cheap rate, and quoting for corporates, and oh, but you know, I love doing this, so it feels wrong to charge loads of money. Whereas actually, if I looked at it a different way, it would be, well, what's it worth to the client? And I always have that struggle in my head. Now, whether that's a gender thing or whether that's just a me thing, I don't know. But I absolutely recognise there is a big difference in a lot of organisations. It's better now than it used to be, and people are more aware of it. But I think certainly if we can at least as women start to recognise the value that we provide is at least on par with, or sometimes actually a hell of a lot higher than that gender imbalance because of the other skills and the empathetic approaches we take and those sorts of things. Actually, I think if we can tackle our part in that equation, we can get closer to equality.
Yeah. Have you ever had any sexist comments made to you? Is that something you feel comfortable talking about? Because
yeah, I will talk about anything, Lauren. There's nothing off topic with me. I mean, yeah, all the way through from small little microaggressions, where I think the first big training event I was running, there was about 60 people in the room. I was only about 25, 26 at the time, little bubbly, at the time blonde thing at the front of the room, greeting people. And almost all of the men coming in, because it's a very male dominated kind of business world within the SMEs as well, but actually 9 times out of 10 all of them asked me to make them a cup of tea rather than my male older counterpart who was there to do the registration and signing in. And I don't think people do these things consciously, but it is still, I think, very much programmed and ingrained in around their expectations and age as well as gender.
I thought, because you just said a very key thing. Blonde, young.
Female.
How do I word this? Blonde, young woman.
Yeah.
Man. I've got to bite my tongue on this. Yeah. I'm going to do that afterwards. So, we're going to wrap it up just on one final word. What would Sadie Sharp like to share? Her showing her experience. Do you think people should know their worth? What are Sadie Sharp's 5 top tips to starting her own company?
Okay, 5 top tips off the top of my head. Then I haven't prepared for this, so I don't know if it will actually be 5. Number 1 would absolutely be throw your hat in the ring for everything. Like, one thing I did very early doors was just volunteer for all of the new opportunities I could experience and the projects I could work on and stuff before I went self-employed, because it gave me an opportunity to learn all of the different things I could be doing, what did I like and what was I good at. Number 2 is recognize that actually if you can learn to embrace and be comfortable with that kind of uncomfortable feeling of being stretched, of I don't know what I'm doing and I feel like I'm kind of making it up as I go along, but I'll trust the process and just work hard at it, you will grow so much more quickly than if you aim to stay comfortable. Because if you're comfortable, you're doing what you've always done. So embrace the things that scare you. That's number 2. Blimey. Number 3, surround yourself with people that are
positive influences.
Yeah, and they're doing the things that you want to do, the kind of people you kind of person you want to be doing. Because I definitely believe that we see ourselves as an average of the people that surround us. So if you surround yourself with people who are already doing what you want to do, you will get there quicker, and they of course will help you do that. Number 4 is recognize when you've got your emotional tank is full. If you're stretching and striving and pushing and all those sorts of things, that takes emotional energy, and you have to recognize when you have to top up your emotional piggy bank. And I guess number 5 would be if you want to do something and you don't know where to start, reach out, ask questions. People will help when you ask them. Even if you don't know what you need help with, if you say, I'm struggling with XYZ, a lot of people will offer help and say, have you thought about? So yeah, ask for help.
Great. Thanks for being on this podcast. Sadie, it's been lovely